I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents. A different view of the priesthood that involves everyone.
We need our priests to help us and celebrate the sacraments with us, but we also need the faithful. We need the faithful people in their own lives and in their family lives to be able to build up that church.
Plus, African Americans and abortion. One bold effort to save lives.
And they put out into the deep, and now they're talking all about it.
So important at this time, I think, in the church's history and the Brooklyn Diocese history, to really call on the time, talent, and treasure of lay people in our parishes.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. The faith of the Haitian people has been on display around the world since the massive earthquake back in January. This past weekend, on the 5-month anniversary of that disaster, the National Center of the Haitian Apostolate gathered at Hofstra University out on Long Island for its 28th annual convention.
But how to help their homeland wasn't the only thing that they talked about over there. As the year for priests wrapped up, the National Center took its own look at the priesthood, and not just the ministry of those ordained.
Many Christians who read the Bible and who love Jesus deny the mystery of the priesthood. So it's important for our Catholic identity to emphasize it and to discover the role of the priest. First, to help the priest, because when you are ordained, you do not automatically become a holy person, but you are called to grow in holiness and to serve as an agent for the sanctification of the people.
We are all called to live the gospel. And while we need our priests to help us and celebrate the sacraments with us, and they are essential, you can have no church without the Eucharist. But we also need the faithful. We need the faithful people in their own lives and in their family lives to be able to build up that church.
These conventions have started 28 years ago, and we have been able to really have one every year. It consists, number one, of reflection on a particular doctrinal point. Number two, a kind of a survey of what's going on, the challenges of the hour. And number three, to look for the better practices so that they can be surfaced and be helpful to each one of us. And number four, to build solidarity.
I live my experience with Jesus, with the bread and the wine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Actually, I came to talk to them about the difference between the lay priesthood and the ministry of the laity. But I came into the conclusion that in the first place, I understood that I couldn't really talk to them, literally about this theme. But I understood that I needed instead to listen to them instead of talking to them, and to know where they came from and what they were here for, and how I could from the point of view to get in touch with them.
Many of them, because they're young, they assume that the only time they can encounter Jesus is if they are in church, or perhaps they're under some form of religious instruction. But what we hope to accomplish here is to get them to understand that they meet Jesus at many different points in their lives. They meet Jesus in different experiences and people that they meet. They can meet Christ in terms of who and what they are in their own personal identity.
Well, it's all about being community leaders, taking action, what it means to be Haitian and also to be an American. So I think students here, children, they have a social and a more responsibility in order to think about others. And that's just the message that we're trying to relate to them.
And we hope that this tradition will continue. That will help to really help us all grow in the knowledge of the mystery of Christ and in the experience of the mystery of Christ. That should lead to deeper conversion and to the transformation of our community.
Well, last week I sat down with Bishop Guy Sansaric, who you just heard from there, to talk about Haiti as well as the Haitian Apostolate Convention. You can see all of that over on our website. The complete interview is there at currentsny.net.
Stay tuned. There's much more Currents straight ahead. When we return, we'll have the day's headlines, including a new divorce law that may take effect in New York, and Catholic bishops are not happy about it. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxibane.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, everyday people who dedicate their lives to ministry come together in Queens.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. A day after President Obama spoke to the nation about the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, BP agreed today to set aside $20 billion for people affected by it. In his first ever speech from the Oval Office, the president said cleanup and containment efforts are ongoing and prayer will be an important part of the recovery.
Each year, at the beginning of shrimping season, the region's fishermen take part in a tradition that was brought to America long ago by fishing immigrants from Europe. It's called the Blessing of the Fleet. And today it's a celebration where clergy from different religions gather to say a prayer for the safety and success of the men and women who will soon head out to sea, some for weeks at a time. The ceremony goes on in good times and in bad. It took place after Katrina, and it took place a few weeks ago, at the beginning of the most difficult season these fishermen have ever faced. And still, they came and they prayed. For as a priest and former fisherman once said of the tradition, the blessing is not that God has promised to remove all obstacles and dangers. The blessing is that He is with us always, a blessing that's granted even in the midst of the storm.
The Catholic Campaign for Human Development announced Tuesday they will give $300,000 to people and parishes all along the Gulf Coast to help with cleanup and recovery efforts. The New York State Senate Tuesday passed a bill that would make the Empire State the last in the nation to allow so-called no-fault divorce. The bill would let couples go their separate ways by mutual consent. Current law requires one spouse to take blame even if both partners want the divorce to go forward. The New York State Catholic Conference said the state's bishops are disappointed with the Senate action and called the measure fundamentally contrary to the intended meaning and purpose of marriage. The bill must still pass the state assembly and be signed by Governor Patterson. Outgoing Los Angeles Cardinal Roger Mahoney says he did not tell police about a priest who admitted to molesting 2 boys because the children were supposedly illegal immigrants who had returned to Mexico. Court documents released Tuesday also show Cardinal Mahoney did not take stronger action against Father Michael Baker in 1986 because the abuse happened outside the parish. Baker was sent to a treatment center and placed on restricted ministry. Cardinal Mahoney said in a statement he has learned from the past and that LA's sexual abuse prevention policies have become more effective. Meantime, a German bishop who resigned last month over allegations of physical abuse says he may ask Pope Benedict to rescind his resignation. Bishop Walter Mixa will meet with the Pope in July and told a German newspaper he may take the opportunity to try and get his job back. Mixa says his resignation was forced by unfair pressure he likened to the fires of purgatory.
Well, as the Catholic Church tries to move forward from the clergy sex abuse scandal, 2 priests have published a book about how to recognize men who may later abuse children. We get details now from Rome Reports.
Facing the problem of sexual abuses committed by priests, the Pope has asked for clarity. That's what 2 psychologist priests hope to find with the book, The Church and Pedophilia, an Open Wound.
We wanted to know more about this problem and to see what psychologists and psychiatrists had to say. We got deeply into the issue and wrote this book. This book intends to help priests understand how to report problems and to be aware of the public relevance that the priest has.
Cucci and Zollner are psychologists as well as priests, so they've been studying what happened from psychological and religious points of view.
This is a serious problem, and there are very few psychological studies on the topic. We are calling attention to that. there has been little psychiatric and psychological research done for fear of labeling or discriminating against people.
The work not only delves into the problem of priests who have committed abuse, but it also presents possible solutions.
We want to teach seminary directors and novitiates to recognize signs indicating the possibility that a priest or someone aspiring toward priesthood could develop a pathology. If a person has one of the signs, that doesn't mean he's a pedophile. It means we must give him extra attention. It doesn't mean he'll fall into pedophilia, but perhaps that he doesn't know how to listen, doesn't have the capacity to give himself to others, or to serve those who need most. He's a priest focused on himself.
The authors say some of the symptoms leaders should have in mind include the concept the priest has of his power and his interactions with adults. If he lacks the capacity to interact in a normal way with people his own age, they say he could try to fill the void by abusing children. Cucci and Zollner say this is a serious pathology, but that it can be detected and in some cases redirected if educators know when and what to ask future priests. The pair of psychologists and professors at the Gregorian Pontifical University are publishing their conclusions after several years of study.
Well, the British government released a report yesterday accepting blame for the 1972 clash known as Bloody Sunday. Family members of the 14 Northern Irish victims killed in the violence celebrated the news Tuesday in the town where it all happened. The report shows the paratroopers who gunned down the victims had no reason to believe they were under threat from them. They gave no warning before firing and later lied to investigators.
I absolutely do feel vindicated. The reality is that for many years the international community had to listen to this nonsense that the first shots fired on Bloody Sunday were fired by the IRA. We now have a British law lord say that the first shots fired on Bloody Sunday were fired by the British Army.
Well, the killings increased Irish Catholic hostility toward the British Army. Ireland's bishop said in a statement Tuesday that they welcome the government report and share the joy and relief of the families of those killed and injured. And finally, when you think of great Catholic films, the Blues Brothers probably isn't the first one that pops into your head. Well, the Vatican newspaper, the Roman Observer, thinks otherwise. Today is the 30th anniversary of the John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd film, and the paper ran a full-page analysis calling it a Catholic classic. The movie's two main characters embark on a mission from God to save an orphanage from foreclosure. The newspaper says the Blues Brothers should be recommended viewing for Catholics everywhere.
Not the first thing that you would think of.
It's not exactly like the Ten Commandments or something. You know?
No, but funny and a good story. Okay, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up.
When we come back, one community hit hard by abortion and one man's idea to change that.
Welcome back. Well, the statistics are shocking. By one estimate, nearly 40% of pregnancies among black women end in abortion, more than double the rate of all races combined. Now, one organization is trying to change that.
They've embarked on a bold advertising campaign using billboards to spread their message, including depicting African-American children with the taglines "Black and Unwanted" and "Endangered Species." It's all getting a lot of attention, so to find out more, I spoke by phone recently with Ryan Bomberger, the Chief Creative Officer for the Radiance Foundation. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us here on Currents today. We really appreciate your time, sir.
Glad to be here.
Well, your foundation, the Radiance Foundation, first of all, tell me a little bit about the background there and what the foundation does.
Well, the Radiance Foundation started last spring by my wife and I, Bethany. She's an educator, professional educator, and I'm a creative director. And we just have this heart to be able to illuminate the truth about certain social issues. And it's predicated on my own adoption story. I'm adopted into a family of 15, not exactly your typical American family. And 10 of us were adopted. So it's like the United Nations, where every race mixed up. But the most important thing growing up in that environment is you learn so keenly how character trumps race. And so with the Radiance Foundation, we take that whole mentality and we infuse it in everything that we do, and especially in this abortion awareness campaign, Endangered Species being our first one, and Black and Unwanted. And our whole heart and hope is to be able to expose people to the truth, so they see a picture of clarity, so they can make better decisions for their lives.
Yeah. And I understand that they're going to be in this newest campaign now, the Black and Unwanted, which you spoke about there. There are going to be about 60 some odd billboards in the Atlanta area. Is that going to be about right?
Yes, there are, and actually they're launching this week as well in Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. There are a number of other states and organizations that are taking this same campaign.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about this campaign and also the previous one, the one that you mentioned there, Endangered Species as well, and the message that these particular campaigns try to get across.
The message, first and foremost, is that life is precious, no matter the race. But what happens is there's an extreme racial disparity in how abortion impacts different demographics. And so what we're doing is highlighting federal statistics that show how in the black community abortions occur at 3 times or more that of the majority of the population. And so what we're trying to illuminate is that there's a lot of destructive social policies and behaviors that happen in a community that both my wife and I have worked in for years and years and years, and we love, and we want to be able to save possibilities. So that's really the heart of Endangered Species, is to wake up a community to the destruction that's going on, to alert them to the fact that there are other options like adoption, which are a beautiful solution and don't depend upon destruction like abortion offers. That's all it offers. And so Black and Unwanted also highlights the racialization of adoption, and we look at the National Association of Black Social Workers, for instance, and how the decree in 1972 was that black children should never be placed in white homes. So part of that residual is that black children end up languishing in foster care because they don't want to place them transracially, which is a tragedy for the child.
Yeah, and you mentioned some statistics there as far as how, much more, I guess, the abortion rate is higher among African Americans than among people of other races in the United States. What are the numbers there? How many more abortions are there, I guess, per capita in the black community as compared to other racial communities?
Well, you're looking at every year there are about 600,000 abortions in the black community. 400,000 abortions, whereas the total number of abortions in America is 1.2 million, according to the latest statistics, which are only provided through 2006. And so you can see the disproportionate numbers. What people claim is that there's a higher birth rate, there's a higher pregnancy rate, but what we're saying is because of this culture of promiscuity and birth control, which is pushed upon a population, particularly the black population, seemingly more so than any other demographic, the resultant is the fatherlessness that exists. The resultant is the high abortion rate, or the high birth rates, or the extremely high STD rates. So we're saying that there is a targeting that's going on here. You look at where the clinics are located as well. And so there are a whole lot of federal statistics that you can look at, and you see a much clearer picture as to what's going on, and that's what we're trying to highlight.
Okay. Well, and where can folks go to learn more information about your group and about these campaigns?
Well, the campaign website is toomanyAborted.com. That's T-O-O, manyaborted.com, or you can go to theradiancefoundation.org, find out more about the campaign, get involved, because we believe that the only way to make these changes is to act positively in order to change the status quo, and that's what we firmly believe in.
All right. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
And I did check on some of those numbers with the CDC that he was talking about the number of abortions among the black community as opposed to other racial groups. And he's right, there is a difference there. As a matter of fact, I was looking too at the state of Georgia numbers, because of course this is from Atlanta, and they all stress the high number of abortions among the black community. In Atlanta, about 57% of abortions in the state of Georgia are among black women. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there as far as the different racial groups go.
Yeah, and the work that they're doing obviously really is very near and dear to them. They want to get out the education on this, and he cites a lot of really disturbing, challenging statistics, problems that exist within the community, and not just in Georgia, but obviously throughout the country, that these are really real issues. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that edict in 1972, which was just a year after I was born, which was that a black child could not be adopted into a white home. And you think about really how far we think we've come since then, and yet at the same time, when that, as he mentioned, created a system where so many black children are languishing in foster care, then it becomes that much more of a challenge of an argument to try and say, well, hey, we need to sort of fix the whole system from a lot of different angles.
And you got to talk about things like this, and you're of course going to attract some controversy. Some people on the other side are saying, well, maybe you should focus on, instead of focusing on just the abortion issue, focus on greater social and economic change in the black community to bring about that change and a reduction in abortions as an end result.
It's all tied together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find out more about this. I've written more about it over on our blog, including some of what the critics are saying and some more about what this group, the Radiance Foundation, is saying as well. Just go to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Still ahead, Brooklyn's lay ministers reunite and reconnect.
I came to support the efforts because I want to give back from what I was able to enjoy. It was my time. I loved going to my classes. I loved the people that I met.
Well, finally tonight we talk a lot here about putting out into the deep, and you're about to meet some people who have done just that. They're graduates of the Pastoral Institute in the diocese, men and women who completed a special training program to help them in various parish ministries.
They held a reunion and a fundraiser last weekend at Mary Louis Academy in Jamaica, and our cameras were there to find out more.
Today we're happy to be holding our 2010 alumni reunion for graduates of the lay ministry program. These are persons who have completed the lay ministry formation program of the Pastoral Institute. And we try to come together once a year in a casual setting for a reunion, fellowship, and also to raise money for the Pastoral Institute Scholarship Fund.
My second year, the first one.
Today, we hope to be able to raise funds through raffles, through 50-50, and through donations.
I came to support the efforts because I want to give back from what I was able to enjoy. It was my time. I loved going to my classes. I loved the people that I met.
The 3-year program prepares laypersons to be leaders within the parish, to help the pastor and the staff, pastoral staff, by being in charge of a particular ministry or coordinating a ministry such as adult faith formation or the RCIA.
We have an executive committee that gets together about 5 times during the year, and we brainstormed as to what might be interesting for our association to hear, and they came up with the theme of the environment.
Even given the context in which we meet today of that terrible vision of the oil spill, we can't give up. We need to take our hope with us into the 21st century in conjunction with others, people of faith, and do what we can do to make the earth a better place for all and to care for God's creation. Part of my presentation, the last one, is a lay leadership component, and it really asks if the Catholic Church as a church is interested in care for creation. What does that mean for ministers in the church, for lay leaders? How do we bring that to parishes as lay leaders? Because many of the documents of the council talk about lay people having a role in the secular life, in the community life, in the political life. And that's a big part of what we do, but also as ministers in the church, both of those things, I think lay leaders need to look at in terms of care for creation and get across to people in the pew.
The Pastoral Institute never refuses to take a participant for any of our programs due to an inability to pay tuition or other fees on the part of the individual or the parish. This is possible because of our partnership with the Alive and Hope Foundation.
It's so important at this time, I think, in the church's history and the Brooklyn Diocese history to really call on the time, talent, and treasure of lay people in our parishes to step up and take leadership roles in helping assist their parishes and their schools. So it's critically important.
We don't have 3 or 4 priests in each one of the parishes right now, so we have to do the work. So the lay ministers program has been a big support for the Catholic Church.
Well, definitely, puts it into practice, right? You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. You get involved, you too can contribute to any number of things if you want to see effective change, and also really just help, lend a helping hand given the fact that there is a bit of a shortage.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of mirrors what they were talking about at the National Haitian Apostolate Convention, which was the fact that maybe we all can't or aren't called even to have a collar or wear a habit or whatever and be an official member of ministry, an official ordained person, or an official consecrated person, but we all have a role to play in ministry, and that's sort of kind of what they're talking about too. Everyone can step up to the plate and take a leadership position and lend a helping hand, like you said. It's a powerful message for everybody.
Help is always good.
That's it, and that is it for tonight. Now, coming up tomorrow, I'll talk with the father of a father who became a father. A little bit confusing there, but Greg Rapisarda is a widower whose son is a priest, and last weekend Greg Rapisarda was ordained a priest himself. Father Greg Rapisarda, now a remarkable story that you will not want to miss.
And remember, meantime, you won't want to miss a thing, and you won't miss a thing if you keep up with us online at currentsny.net. You can also check out our Facebook page as well. We're constantly updating it with new information. Until next time, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.